Now we have started.
Now we have started.
So what you're supposed to do is knead it. No, not like bread, like knead it in your soul.
Oh,
No,
like
just kidding.
I need this in my life.
No, you were right. Well, as a creative, I need it in my life.
Okay.
I don't know if you have a need for creating things.
Maybe not clay.
But musically.
Music,
Yeah.
yeah.
Same thing. Like
things
if
like
you
that.
don't get to play music,
In a while,
you can feel it.
it's kind of welling up.
Yes.
Just need that outlet.
Yes. So I need it. But yeah, you had it right. You're supposed to knead it like bread till it's soft. You can do that.
Yeah,
that might
it's
take
not
a
working.
minute.
Yeah.
And I brought an assortment of tools. Those are yours.
Cool.
Fork and knife. Don't eat it. Not sure if it's toxic.
Well, you take
but-
away all the fun, apparently.
And for everybody who's going to need to see a final project, it's not going to happen.
No.
We're going to make this, and then it has to be baked.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
don't microwave it, and
No.
don't overbake it.
Okay, so what's the perfect baking temperature and time?
I don't even remember.
Okay.
We'll
So
read
that's
those
an experiment
instructions
in
when we
itself.
get there. It says on the box. It's like, what, 275 degrees for 15
275.
minutes per quarter inch.
Oh, wow.
So if you,
I'm horrible at math.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep the box.
Yeah, for sure.
So also if you want something to be a half inch or more,
Okay.
you need to like bulk it up on the inside, like wrap it around tin foil or something. So it's still the clay is thin,
Uh-huh.
but you have a bigger product.
Okay.
That's too much work for me.
Yeah,
it
that
starts to not be fun.
Yeah, that seems crazy.
So
For those of us that are just joined, or for those of you, let's say that are just joining us, we are in the middle of Arts and Crafts with Megan Reed,
yes,
who is our guest this week.
I
Welcome back to the FCC Youth Online. We are here with the wonderful Megan Reed. She's going to walk us through arts and crafts, and we're going to talk a little bit. Should be a lot of fun tonight.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Now, I was probably in 5th grade last time I worked with clay. So this should be pretty interesting.
It was last Christmas for me, so
I think I made a fish or something.
we'll see if you can duplicate it.
I'm going for a turtle or an elephant, actually.
All right.
So
Well,
we'll see what happens.
I did bring some little cookie cutters.
Yeah.
If you want to keep it simple.
Okay.
Or I found this little butterfly. You can stamp it and make
Like
an impression,
cool.
like so. I brought the wood, so
Mhm.
you could do a wood texture if you wanted.
And that is pretty cool. I will say
It
that.
is pretty cool. Clay is pretty cool.
It is. I remember, was it clay or something else that you could put on newspaper, like flatten it out, and then you pull it up and it has a newspaper on it?
Well, that's silly putty.
That's silly putty.
silly.
I know. I'm silly.
I think this is just really nice.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a stress ball.
Mm-hmm. You flat it up, you throw it at people. Or something. I don't know. I don't know what relieves stress.
Duck Josh. So I don't know what you want to make. You could make a bowl. You
Mhm.
could do like elementary school and roll out a snake
Or an
then-
eel.
or an eel and just keep making those, and you can make a whole pot.
You know?
You could.
I could make a pretzel.
I thought you were gonna
I'm all
do the
done.
fish. That
Could.
started looking like a fish.
And I'm done.
Oh,
It's like a.
good job. What I did last Christmas
Uh-huh.
was I made flat pieces, and I used the cutter, and then I cooked them like that, put a little texture on there, and then baked them, and then put a magnet, and I made little magnets.
Oh, clever.
But I thought this would be fun, and we could just keep playing with clay
Yeah.
while we talked.
Yeah, I like it.
I need something to do with my hands. Or
Oh, me too. Or I start tapping, and
Yeah.
being a drummer, I know that really kind of makes people mad sometimes.
Yep.
I got some eyes when I was in school, like, stop. Because I get that nervous tick of drumming on
Yeah.
anything and everything.
Dustin does it.
Only the cool people do.
My sons
find
do
that.
it.
Yeah, see? Still, cool people.
I'm not a fan.
And what does that say about you?
I'm not cool. I don't know. Don't care. Which is funny because that's kind of what we're going to talk about.
How cool you are?
How I don't care
Okay.
that I'm not cool.
Right on. Yeah, I can see that. So
how I don't care.
How you don't care. Yes,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, very much so. And I'll probably talk a little bit more about that later. But
Okay.
first, I know a lot of us know you.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, you've been, dealing with the youth group for a long time. And but just to kind of give us a little background, like as far as your high school experiences, when you graduated, thoughts of high school in general.
Well, contrary to what I heard on last week's episode,
If you say anything about Yuma High,
I'm not going to say anything about Yuma High because why would I?
I don't know.
Because the best school in town,
I feel
obviously, is Kofa.
No.
Go Big Red,
Wrong.
class of 88.
False.
Back in 88, I graduated from Kofa.
Okay.
And I'm from Yuma, which a lot of people can't say.
Right. That's
a lot
true.
of transplants here.
Yeah.
What else? My family, on my mom's side, they are from Yuma as well. My dad and his family came when he was like late middle school, maybe. He also graduated from Kofa.
Wow.
We are house divided. My mom, and my sister graduated from Yuma High.
Oh, good.
And I'll just
So
say
there's
this:
some.
those were the only two options back then.
Wow.
Cibola wasn't open yet when I graduated high school. But
Good to
whatever.
know. Good
But
to know.
whatever. We don't need to dwell on that.
No, we won't dive into that part too much.
Yeah. I and my family have been part of First Christian since fall of '99.
Okay.
And I think I was officially serving with youth ministry by 2002. I remember doing stuff while pregnant with Aaron, who's now 18, just turned 18.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute
Yeah.
that I've been working with
For some
youth.
reason, I thought you were, and maybe you volunteered a little bit before 2002.
I think
but
I did.
I could have sworn you were doing stuff before that.
I started considering was volunteering, but then was asked to do a focus group.
Sounded like a job.
While Lance was still here, Lance and Sherry.
Uh-huh.
Actually, Sherry suggested, and I was like, "You've not been listening to my story. I should not be around these students. I don't have enough." And she was like, "You're perfect because you have so much." And I was like, "Oh, all right." So it was right then, and then I think when Jeff he became the interim youth minister.
Yeah.
Is when I really started to spend a lot more time volunteering and officially became a youth coach, I think. I'm not sure that we call them that, but just
Helpers,
volunteers.
yeah.
My husband and I, Rod, he did the Amor trips down to Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
I finally got to go on one, but the last one, in fact, before they quit going down there.
Yeah, those were always a lot of fun. I went to a handful, and yeah, a lot of hard work for sure. That's definitely a long week, but it was always kind of cool to go down there and do something outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And really get out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. So I decided to make, I don't know, I guess they could be a necklace.
Oh, nice.
You could paint it.
Yeah.
Or once it's baked, you can put a photo on it and glaze it.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
If you're working on Christmas early, they can be ornaments.
Yes, gift tags. Whatever you want them to
Mm-hmm.
be. Just,
Sky's the limit, really.
yes, that's place just super fun like that. It's got all kinds of potential. That's probably why somebody back in Bible times made the reference.
Somebody. Somebody in that big book.
Somebody
Yeah.
talked about Potter and the clay and
Yeah.
whatnot.
So I'm going for a
It's
turtle.
thought bubble?
Well, as I'm
This is
going,
what I'm saying.
I kind of got a Squidward nose going. So I'm going for like a turtle, and like that's his flipper, but it's turning out to be a little bit like Squidward, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Well,
I think I need more fins.
yes, that's something that's really depending on what kind of creative you are.
Okay.
You just start with an idea, and if you're cool with it, it morphs into whatever it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
And for me, that's part of the process, is just like being creative. My dad was the kind of artist that was very detail oriented, and he had a specific goal in mind, and he would work for hours and hours and hours a day to get details just right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not my process.
Not
For him, that was what he needed. I think
Mm-hmm.
it gave him some control over something.
Yeah.
For me, I just need to let whatever is in there come out. It's kind of therapeutic and cathartic for me to just play with things and see what happens.
When you're doing like arts and things like crafts, because you don't just work with clay, you do quite a few different things.
Seldom work with clay. But
Okay. Do you feel like your mind wanders, or is it more like you can block certain thoughts out?
I think it depends on the day. I think it allows me, especially if I'm doing something like this where I'm just kind of occupying my hands, it does allow me to sit and think about things that I need to think about. But sometimes I use it as an escape. So if I'm sewing, I need a pattern, I have to focus, pay attention, and do math, which, oh my gosh.
There's math in sewing.
Sometimes it takes the joy out of it for me, but nobody can talk to me, and the whole measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
I measure like 10 times and write it down and like Rod check my math. I mean,
yeah, that's how I am with woodworking. Sometimes when you're making a cut, and you know, okay, this is my one piece that I have.
make a donut.
Well, that's gonna just make me hungry. Yeah. You're like, okay, this is my one piece I have. You know, I'm not gonna run to Lowe's again. You know, and it's just like you measure, and then you forget that you're putting like a 45-degree angle on it, and you cut, and you're like, oh,
Oopsie.
guess I'm going to Lowe's. For the 5th time today.
I know when Rod starts a plumbing project, there's at least 3 trips involved.
Plumbing and electrical, I feel like are pretty tough, because I have almost shocked myself doing electrical. So we were in the process a number of months ago of kind of changing up some stuff around our house, doing floors and baseboards, and I would change out all the outlets to make them nice and make them like going from the yellowish ones to the white ones, make them look cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the kitchen working on something, and it was just a few minutes before Marshall went down for his nap, and I was like, oh, I'll get a head start on this. And I undid the faceplate. I was like, I'll just undo the faceplate, get those off, no big deal. And then when he goes to bed, I know which circuit I need to shut off so I can do the rest. But for right now, I can just take the faceplate off. And then I was looking at it, I was like, I can undo the outlet just a little bit. Just a little bit to speed up the process.
I've had the same conversation with myself.
I was like, oh, no big deal. Marshall was sitting in the kitchen. He was on the kitchen floor playing with some stuff, watching me. And as I'm undoing the outlet, my screwdriver slips, and I hit the hot wire, and sparks fly all over the kitchen. And it was one of those moments that in the split second I was like, okay, I'm not dead, but I'm holding and doing like the check. Okay, I'm good. I'm still in the kitchen. The outlet was completely charred. Like sparks went all over the sink, all over the fridge.
Jake.
And I was looking at it.
Is your wife going to hear this for the first time?
No, she's heard this before.
Okay. Your mom?
Well, I don't know about my mom, but she'll enjoy it.
I don't think so.
But I look down, and Marshall is laughing his butt off, like that
It's
belly
a cute
laugh
giggle too.
it is. It's adorable. But this was where like he's laughing so hard that he's like not producing sound. And I was like, buddy, I am so glad you're enjoying this because you almost had to dial 911. And I know you're 14 months old, and that would be a slow conversation for the dispatcher.
Jake.
But from that point on, I waited and then shut off power to the outlets before I did it.
Oh my
So
word.
lesson learned. But it was pretty cool looking. I mean, the sparks flying. That was really
He thought
interesting.
that was hysterical.
Oh, yeah.
That is funny.
I mean, definitely a boy. He's definitely a boy. Because seeing his dad almost get electrocuted was what triggered a great laugh and a great memory for me. So yeah, there you go.
I'm glad you are able to remember it fondly.
Oh, I do.
That's hilarious. I don't even know what I'm making except a ring.
Nice. It's like an onion ring. Back to food, I guess.
Yeah,
I am hungry.
I'm just enjoying playing with it,
Yeah.
actually. You could make a coaster that looks like this, but of course thinner. Put some felt feet on it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea.
Father's Day's coming up. Does your dad need some coasters?
No, he has quite a few. He has quite a few coasters.
Do you need some? I have no problem buying my own gifts.
For Father's Day?
For Father's Day, Tuesday.
Just a random Wednesday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I
It's
woke up
perfect.
today. It's perfect for a gift.
Yes.
Yeah. So the last couple of weeks, we've kind of been discussing
Mhm.
things that we would have wanted to know or be told prior to leaving high school or right after graduation.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've been following the last couple of weeks,
I have.
but me and Kate brought up a couple. I don't know if you want to add to those ones or if you have some that you wanted to bring up.
What were you guys talking about again?
So the ones that I remember, so last week I wrote them down because I was
It was a long
proactive and
time ago
smart.
that I watched it. I watched Jorge's more recently.
Yeah. So No Man is an Island
Okay, yes.
was one of them. It's okay to not know exactly what you want to do.
Right.
Don't let relationships define you.
Mhm.
And then there was a fourth one that I don't remember off the top of my head.
Just as long as the kids do.
Yeah.
Take notes, students.
It's going to come to me. So let's start with those three.
Okay. Yeah, that's my prevailing thought after watching both was that they stole all the good stuff.
Well, yeah.
But then after thinking about it further, I feel like what's happening is that because essentially you have the same things to say,
Mhm.
but in different ways. And it's the same for me. So what I was thinking was that God's truths and his promises are unchanging. What changes in the scenario is us, the people that he made, the way that he made us, our gifts, our talents, our passions, how we express ourselves and how he is expressed through us in the way that he made us. So I think that's why a lot of our answers are so similar, especially now, a decade for you, 2 for George, and 3 for me, post high school.
Right.
That those truths and those life lessons that we wished we'd known then prevail in our lives today.
Yeah.
So, but unlike both of you, or you and George, and even Kate for that matter, I think probably more I relate to Kate faith-wise, because I knew about God. My parents were both raised in church,
Mhm.
but I was not. So the extent of my religious background was being told I was Christian, but not really knowing what that meant beyond Jesus.
Okay.
So, look, an ashtray. So I think the notes that I took while I was considering what we would be talking about was first and foremost, the thing I wish I had known when I graduated high school was Jesus. Because I didn't really know who he was or what that meant or the implications of that. So now that I do know everything that you guys were saying is absolutely spot on. I wish that I'd known him, and I think what would have made the biggest difference for me having known Christ was being known by him and understanding the fullness of his love for us. I wish that I had known how much he valued me as an individual, and because I think if I would have known that in my soul, my decisions would have been much different. My relationships would have been much different. How I thought about myself really impacted the choices that I made, because I don't think I had any value for myself. I didn't feel valued, and I didn't know that I could be. So I think that impacted directly the relationships I chose to have, whether friends or boyfriends or even within my family. So I think when you don't know your value, you can't have value for yourself, which ironically somehow makes you very selfish. I don't know if it seems like you would not necessarily be selfish, but I think that's just a defense mechanism maybe.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would not have entered into the romantic relationships that I had because they weren't healthy, they weren't beneficial. It was like they were time stealers. I learned a lot of lessons, but I feel like that was time wasted, and it was pain endured that could have been avoided had I known God, had I known how he valued me, if I'd have known that he had something for me other than just getting through each day and coming and getting through it as it came.
It's like that whole completion of your heart type of thing, that filling that void when you're doing it through the world's eyesight. You're looking for just anything.
But even just I think I started school because I didn't have any direction, and I think a lot of kids were going off to school. I never really wanted to leave Yuma. That was never a big, I got to get out of this place. But I didn't really have a lot of direction, so I worked a little bit. I think what they call a gap year wasn't really, I didn't label it anything. I just didn't know what I was going to do. So I just worked at an overnight delivery service here in town, and then I started at AWC thinking, well, I need to get something going. I can't just do this. So then that first semester, and I thought computer programming, which I can't say I ever had a passion for. It's what my mom did. She made a career out of it with the city. I wasn't going to work for the water department like my dad did, so computers, okay. So first semester or second semester, I got a full-time job at AEA, and I worked there for 7.5 years. And then eventually I became a stay-at-home mom after that. But it wasn't until then that I actually met Christ, started coming to church with a newborn, or I think Connor was like 9 months old at the time. And the rest is history. But not knowing God and not knowing the value that he placed in me and that he made me with a purpose, I think really... for that whole first decade out of high school, just was hard. I mean, even after being married and becoming a mom, and I thought for sure becoming a mom was going to be that unconditional love that I had been missing and wanting. But then I quickly realized that wasn't even satisfying me spiritually. So since then, in the 10 or the 20 years since then, I've developed this relationship with God, and I think came to learn those lessons that you and Kate talked about, and then George he did a really good job, I think, last week articulating all of that. But I think, just to expand on what you guys were talking about, it doesn't necessarily matter what your career is if you go to school. I think what matters, where the value comes in, is serving God.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you do for a living in the end.
Yeah, I can see that. Finding your identity in God kind of trumps everything else. Like, even like you were talking about being a mom, I mean, if you have your foundation in Christ, everything else kind of follows suit after that. Which is something me and Kate have talked about, that with our marriage, with our family, it goes God, me and Kate, then Marshall. There's like a step, where we put, God first. We try to, we fail from time to time, because it's easy to put your kids first for a while, or
they're so demanding.
It's true. They're little moochers.
Gotta keep them alive,
and fed and bathed.
Yes.
And so it's easy to kind of get into that whole idea of everything becomes about your kid.
Yeah.
But from time to time, you have to have that kind of come back to Jesus moment type of thing, and be like, we need to get our priorities straight again. And it's a constant process,
Absolutely.
And I envision it, and I mean, you could talk about this a little bit. I envision it being just ongoing. I mean, it's not like after 5 years old, all of a sudden.
Absolutely.
I
mean, it's perfect. Like anything else. If you, as a musician, or as an athlete, if you don't practice your craft or your sport, it's a use it or lose it kind of thing. And it's the same with our faith. But I think where I probably most benefited from finally learning that lesson, that God values me, it certainly affected my relationship with him. Very nice.
Yeah, working on an elephant.
I have made from a donut to a square tray, ring dish. It just keeps morphing.
Yeah, I like it. You got a transformer, and it's great.
Yes. What was I saying? Oh, that the more I understood and continue to understand how God values me and loves me, it only serves to enhance those earthly relationships. So in my marriage, in my parenting, with my parents, there's been a lot of need for forgiveness in all of those relationships. And I think knowing how God values me and understanding that he values each one of those people, even with all their imperfection, it helps me relate to them a lot better. It helps me to be less selfish. Obviously, I fail as well sometimes. But I think there's a freedom in admitting that failure when you understand God's grace. I mean, he's all about relationships. He's all about reconciliation. He created us to have relationships with us, and he created man and woman to have a relationship with each other. And like you were saying, no man is an island, no woman is an island. We're meant to be together, and the whole purpose of sending Christ to take on flesh and live among us and then eventually die for us is to have reconciliation and be with God in that relationship. And who else is willing to die for me? Probably Rod.
Yeah, I would assume so. But you don't want to test that.
I've told my kids not only would I die for them, I would kill for them, which is a little intense. You can cut that part out if you need to, Josh.
No, that needs to stay. Yeah, because sometimes when you're, doing stuff like this and like doing lessons or something like that, sometimes it gets in your head that for me at least, if I'm working on something, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Or like, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I'm just rambling now, or I don't know if this makes sense or if anybody's going to get something out of it. But I mean, now being involved in the youth group and involved in ministry for a while now, because we came back in 2002 when we came back to the church from moving around. It's not like we left and like we're leaving the church because blah blah. We were just moving around. In 2002 is when we came back to the youth group, and the end of 2002 is when I started in the worship band. So I've been doing ministry for a while, since 2002, but really becoming a leader and like a counselor, for the past, decade or whatever. Like you said a little bit ago that, somebody is going to get something out of it. God will put something on somebody's heart that even if one person in a room full of people, if one person gets it, then it's all worth it.
Yeah, and I hope so. I mean, it's a like I referenced that before when Sherry Kaufman was like, you should be a youth coach, you should be a focus group leader. I was like, cool. There's no way you should have been paying attention to all these horror stories of who I am and where I've been, and there's no way parents aren't going to trust me with their children.
All right.
But what I have discovered is a couple of things. Most parents are apprehensive to share their dirty deeds, their failures, because we want to set good examples for our kids. And I mean, I'm a parent, I totally get that. And shocker, my kids don't know everything about me. And that's okay, but I am not everybody's parents that I've been with for the last 18 years doing youth ministry. So I can share and I can be open and honest and talk about the things that I've done and what I've learned. And everybody's parents get to, I don't know what you'd call it, still be glowing in their children's eyes. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know how to phrase that. I mean.
Yeah, I can see that, like, you're not supposed to be your kid's best friend or anything like that. So there is a potential to
I think
to
we all
overshare.
want our parents to be on a pedestal. And obviously there are students who know beyond a shadow that their parents are not on a pedestal. They're not living their lives the way that Christ would have them. But for me, I'm able to share those kind of things. And I think that's what I wanted to talk about within that context. And I don't know, just not telling those things or sharing those parts of my testimonies so I can say, oh yeah, me too. Yours wasn't even as bad as mine. It's more about, I completely relate. You're not the only one. But the more important part of your mistake, of your bad choice, or the reasons that you've made that choice, is the victory you can have beyond that. So what I would say, to answer the question directly, what I wish I knew leaving high school was that I don't have to be defined by my bad choices. I think there's a lot of small-minded people. I mean, and you're going to high school with other teenagers, and you're not as mature as you think you are. And so we tend to judge and we label. If somebody's really poor decision has been done semi-publicly, and there's social media everywhere, and people are always TikToking and Snapchatting, and so a lot of people's bad choices get aired publicly, and that's what they become known for.
Yeah.
But I wish I had known that it didn't have to stay that way. Like, those things don't define who we actually are. That was one bad night, one bad moment, one bad choice.
Yeah. That
isn't the end all and be all of who I am. I'm so much a different person than I was when I left high school.
Yeah.
But for those 10 years before I knew my value in Christ, and that he had a plan and a purpose for me, I believed it. That was my truth, is I am that person. I'm never going to not be that person. And I think that would be the biggest takeaway after knowing Christ, of course. Now this has become a box lid. I've made a box with a lid. Is that you learn from those things, and you have a really good understanding of why God doesn't want us to do some of those things, and you learn from it, and you move on from it, and you don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
Hopefully. If you don't know your worth and your value in Christ, then you feel, I've talked to other students that have felt worthless, damaged, soiled, tainted, unclean. And so what's the point of doing different things? What's the point of making better decisions when this is who I am now?
Right.
And so they continue to make choices that further hurt them. They become self-destructive. And I would say I would want them to know that. First, to know God, to know Jesus, to know that he values you greatly, knit you together in your mother's womb, and he has purpose and plans and gifts for you, and he wants you to serve in his kingdom, which is an amazing, humbling experience, and that you aren't just your mistake. I mean, I did not pick clay for that purpose, but it really is an appropriate metaphor.
Yeah.
I mean, this piece of clay that came off that brick was a little ring, and now it's this box, and it just keeps changing, but it's the same thing. It started one thing and it continues to morph into other things. Maybe this was way more useful than the ring that I made.
Yeah.
It's aesthetically more pleasing, maybe,
right.
Unless you're really into rings.
Somebody watching is like, why didn't you keep the ring? That was so cool.
We can make more.
Yeah, and that's a great, like you said, it's a great metaphor, because as you were making that ring, at any point you can be like, all right, this is garbage, and just toss it.
Start it over,
because there's plenty of clay. But you didn't. You're like, okay, this can be reworked. And when we have certain times in our life that we fall short, or we make mistakes, which is going to happen. We all make mistakes. That's just human nature. That instead of just throwing in the towel, it's like, well, I did this, so that's me now. There's always the potential to turn it around.
But yes, and I think if you don't know that potential, and you don't understand what the implications of your value that God has for you, then you really do continue in that cycle of feeling worthless and allowing people to treat you the way that you feel.
Yeah.
And it just reaffirms your low self-worth. And that's a dangerous trap. And I've seen numerous students fall into the same trap that I had. And so I think that's why I've been so willing to share so openly. This might embarrass Rod if he watches it, but he was like, you're not going to go up there and overshare, are you? And I was like, no, it's not that.
No.
That's not what this
No.
is. We're not, publicly airing all my dirty laundry.
No.
So, no, and that's, that's never, should be the point of a testimony anyway, but except to share the victory in Christ. And I think once you discover that, and once you know it personally, how valued you are, it really changes. I mean, can you look back at, you were never not a Christian, right? But you had a season. I remember it. I'm that old.
Yeah,
I remember your season, Jake.
I had a season.
You had a season.
I sure did.
The choices that you make and the people you spend your time with really are affected by that.
Yeah, and that's when me and Kate talked about this a couple weeks ago. Not having relationships that define who you are was kind of a big one for me, because there was a time in my life. I mentioned that I was baptized when I was 5 or 6 or something like that. I remember going to church pretty much ever since I can remember. But there was a season that I was hanging out with certain people, and what was interesting is most of them came to the church. They were people that I grew up with and that I knew very well, that I worshipped with and led worship with in some instances. And when we were together outside of church, that's when certain things would happen and started to kind of have that season of, all right, this isn't right, but this is what everybody's doing, so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of negative things, but a lot of fun, lighthearted things too that I remember. That was
Sure.
a whole lot of fun. And if there was social media around back then, would have been interesting. Because we had one of those like 80s, 90s video camera. I don't know if you remember this, but the ones that you rested on your shoulder, that we lost the battery, and so we had like a 150-foot extension cord linked to this video camera, and we would videotape ourselves doing just crazy stuff, including SDIY, which was hilarious and fun.
And it's so not sneaky either.
No, there was no.
There's no stealth mode.
No, there was no stealth mode to that brick on your shoulder. It's kind of like the old Game Boys and seeing like, oh, I'm just gonna have it in my pocket, nobody will know, and it's like huge, and you're like, you can't get it under your desk because you're like, oh no,
It's like having this thing.
that's totally not Tetris playing right now. No. So yeah, there were fun times that we had. And I can definitely go into stories on that. But there were also times that when you're with those people, even though there are your church family, people that you kind of grew up with in the church, there is a potential that you can stray just as easily with people from church. It doesn't have to be the.
Which leads me to this other aspect of knowing your value. Is that many of us did not have great examples, and the advice that we were given was not great. And so I've said before, I grew up in dysfunction, but that was my normal. So I didn't realize that it was dysfunctional until I left it. And so all of those examples and even the advice that I received from people who were supposed to be my protectors was not good. It was, in fact, detrimental. And I think if I could have known at that age God's truths and his promises and the value he has on me and the purpose he has for my life, and I keep repeating that because it bears repeating, my choices would have been really different. I would have not associated with the people that I did, and I would have made different choices. So I think knowing that gives you a discernment when you know and are resting on the promises of God, which I said before are universal. So that's why they keep bubbling up in all of our lives, because his promises and his truths don't change. It's the vehicle in which they're used that does. That's us. I think I would have been able to discern bad advice from good advice. And I think that's part and parcel to the people we choose to hang out with are the ones that we, and it's funny what we sacrifice for the sake of being cool and being accepted.
Right.
But once you grab hold of and grasp the fullness of what it means to be a child of God, it stops being so important. It's the need to be cool.
Yeah.
Stops being important.
Mm-hmm.
The need to be useful to God, the need to be a Christ-like ambassador for the salvation of the people around you, to me is the coolest thing. It's humbling. Knowing that really changes perspective, and I don't need people to tell me I'm pretty. I don't need people to tell me that I'm funny. I mean, those things are nice, obviously.
Yeah, they're
we
great
want to be
compliments, yeah.
we want to be appreciated for sure, and that's part of being valued is, appreciating the person as a whole. But there's so much more to me than those things, and I think that I don't need popularity. I don't need to sacrifice my character in order to be liked.
Right.
Either you do or you don't, because I'm trying to be as authentic to who I believe God created me to be as I can. And I think the right people will value that.
Sure.
And if you don't value that, then I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd have known that leaving high school. I wish I'd have known that leaving middle school or during middle school. You know, it's really a rough age, and to not know your worth and your value at any age is hard. But I think especially growing up, middle school, high school, even college, I think I don't know if you can say especially to any of those age groups, but I know as youth coaches, as parents, when our kids finally go off on their own for the first time, for, Connor was in the military, but a lot of these kids are going to go off to college or military or just move away.
Yeah.
We're concerned. We have concerns that they're going to start applying everything that we've poured into them since birth. And until they each individually believe that God thinks they're the most awesome and has made them and equipped them with the things that they need to do the things that He's equipped them for, they're going to be missing out. It's going to be, it'll be dangerous for them.
Yeah. And
that's our concern. But, I believe, and I haven't read this in the Bible, except not expressly anyway, that we all are entitled to our own relationship with Christ.
Yeah. And
what mine doesn't look like yours. Those promises, like I said, are the same, but the way I got there was way different than how you got there.
Yeah.
And I think each one of the students leaving or in youth ministry now, not just ours, all of them in the history of the world, I think should have that space to develop that, because we can do devotionals every morning, we can pray every night, we can pray over our kids every night, but until they embrace that truth for themselves and own it themselves, they're I think at risk for being led astray, to making questionable decisions. But the good news is that, as we can attest and bear witness to, there's recovery from those. There's victories in the aftermath. There is coming back from anything and everything. There's nothing that you can't come back from if you want to. And I think that's the most amazing thing. And I think, I don't think you have to go through something tragic and horrible to figure that out.
No.
A lot of us have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those of us that have, you should listen to, because we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. There's some people that definitely need a slap in the face for, like, hey, this is what I'm talking about. Some people can get the nice little hints of like, oh, maybe I'll do this. But some people need that big, broad, like, huge, like I said, slap in the face to change their ways, or and it sometimes takes something tragic, which is too bad. But like you said, there's always a way to come back. Doesn't matter what happens.
For sure. And it's really cool. And that's, I think, another blessing of having been in the same youth ministry for almost 2 decades now, as I've watched the walk away and I've watched the comeback. And it's, woo!
Yeah.
Yes!
Yeah.
I get chills.
Little parties.
I mean, there are certain students that come into my mind right now, and I know that they're tight with God, and I know why, but that's not who they are anymore.
Right.
They're everything that God created them to be, and they've got some history and some wisdom now, and that's cool with me. I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end for tonight, because we could keep on talking.
We keep going.
Yeah. So welcome to the 3-hour Wednesday night discussion. It was great having you. I don't know how long we'll be doing this, but maybe we'll get together again.
Maybe we'll come back and
Yeah,
show our
that's
baked,
right.
our baked elephants.
Our elephants and our
my mini coil pots.
nice.
Yes, and whatever these turn out to be.
Which I'm super excited to see what that's going to be.
Earrings? They might be too heavy for earrings. A little box.
A box
gift box.
with a lid too.
Yep.
Oh, and now a handle.
And
the handle's back.
The handle's back.
We'll go ahead and close this prayer. I don't know. Would you mind closing us in
No,
prayer?
I'd love to.
Before we do that, we're still going to continue this Wednesday nights. Sunday nights are still the Zoom meetings. A couple weeks ago, we had a little issue with the password and the username and stuff, but that's been all fixed. So look on the social media sites for the new updated password and username. And also, the YouVersion plan is still going on. I have definitely been slacking for a while. I kind of got into my other devotionals, but that YouVersion daily plan that the youth group started, we're still doing that. So if you think about it, log on, do the devotional, and do the discussion. So go ahead and close in prayer.
Okay. Lord God, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for this outlet that we were able to spend, at least digitally, with the students, and we pray that the right people who need to hear this message will, and even if somebody doesn't need this right now, that it would equip them to help somebody else who does, Lord, to spread the good news of the victory that is in Christ. And we pray, Lord, especially for the seniors as they head into the next chapters of their lives, Lord, that they will go knowing how much they are valued by you, that they would go knowing that your promises are for each and every one of them, that they can rest on those, that they can build a future on those promises, Lord. That you say who you are to us, and you are the creator of everything, the creator of who we are individually. And Lord, we just pray that we could humbly serve you in any way that we are able, and that we would be open to do so. We pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Love you guys. Have a good week.